Good evening and welcome to the CASAA update for the week of 5/9/2016. I'm not even going to ask you what's new and exciting. Just run with it.
Man. Well, I just got caught up on some sleep over dinner. Yeah, I'm exhausted. It's been a crazy several days. Um, I will say we are getting more phone calls to the CASAA hotline than I've seen in the past 6 months or a year, or really since the phone has been forwarding to me. Um, and it's yeah. For those who are just joining us, the FDA deeming regulations were announced on Thursday morning, Thursday, May 5th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Revenge of the 5th. Um, and this is seriously for people who have just started vaping in the past week. This is news to them, and I feel really bad for you because you've got a lot of catching up to do. Um, Even people that have just started vaping in the past month, actually, arguably people that have been vaping for the past 2 years, there are some folks that are just being completely caught off guard by this.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, all of the advocacy organizations are working overtime to try to find out, work out the best way to communicate the situation to people, and um, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I I don't really remember the last time I've been this tired. Um, so
When you worked at Vandigo, maybe?
after like maybe several days driving across the country or something, but even then I could pull over, at night and get a full night's sleep. Um, I've been up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Last night I had a really hard time sleeping because it's Monday today, and there are certain things that need to happen. Unfortunately, I had to take 2 hours and go to sleep this evening,
Well,
um,
you need it. Yeah.
and lots of plans for Tuesday. And for those of you who don't know, tomorrow, May 10th, uh, which is on your calendar, 5/10. The FDA deeming regulations are going to be officially published in the Federal Register, and that essentially starts the countdown clock on the various compliance periods that manufacturers and retailers have to implement certain practices. Um, I don't have a concise breakdown of what that means at 30 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years, 3 years, but that information is coming out, and we hope to provide something digestible in terms of how that affects consumers going forward. But yeah, the 90-day uh, goals or deadline is going to be. Uh, I have I don't know if I've openly speculated this or not, but the 90-day point is where we're going to start seeing businesses closing.
Yeah.
There is a paperwork burden involved in a lot of this
Yep.
that for some people who do not have the resources, they are not familiar with complying with federal regulations. In some instances, you have business owners who are not familiar with complying with simple, local health codes. This was their first business, and something as simple as getting your occupancy permit or business license, um, that was in and of itself kind of a daunting task. I know I was a small business owner once, and for some of these things, I had to reach out to experienced people in order to guide me through just simple things about, uh, you know, how do I do payroll? That's pretty normal. And you have to hire an accountant. All of these things add up to expenses. We're talking about federal regulations here, which are I mean, it's hard enough it's hard enough for the FDA to really understand their own rules. So no one should be under any delusion that you're just going to spend an evening sitting down with this 500-page document and magically understand it, unless you're some sort of super genius. And if you are a super genius, awesome, because you'll be fine. You'll find something else to do with your talents. But yeah, this stuff is thick, and it's really not user friendly. So
It's not easily digestible to read it. It's not like it's not even as easy to read as, say, Game of Thrones books. Like Song of Fire and Ice was much easier to read than this stuff, and that was not an easy read. Just saying.
And at least there's dragons in that.
Yes.
So there are no dragons in the FDA deeming regulations.
Well,
you can make the analogy that, the FDA might be the fire-breathing dragon, but I don't really want to insult dragons like that. So let's, before we go down that rabbit hole,
right.
So the 90-day cutoff is going to be a very interesting one. That has been pegged at August 8th. A lot needs to happen between now and then. I do want to share that I am getting lots of calls. I'd say probably 2 out of the 3 calls that I've been getting have been from people in the industry, whether they're e-liquid manufacturers, mod makers, small business owners, retailers. 2 out of 3 of the calls have been coming from small businesses. And I just really want to put it out there. The first thing I say to them is, you need to get dialed in with an industry association. CASAA is a consumer advocacy organization. We do not provide advice to industry. It's just not our wheelhouse. And now more than ever, I'm not being like stingy with information. It's just not something I spend my time understanding. I understand it as much as I need to in order to communicate the effects that these things have on consumers. Right. But it's just not our role to provide that information. And this serves a couple of purposes. Number one, it protects us from giving out legal advice to businesses. That's just not our job, and we should not assume that role. The second is, we are now, without apology, actively sending people to join an industry association. This afternoon, we announced that we are in a coalition now with SFATA, AEMSA, American Vaping Association, Not Blowing Smoke. Did I get everybody? I always feel like I forget one. Us. I strongly encourage small and medium businesses to join SFATA. Yeah. SFATA,
they have a sliding scale, guys.
Yeah, it's based on your size and sales. I don't know exactly how they calculate your dues, but it is fair, and it is a lot more fair and a lot better investment than not doing anything and finding yourself out of business in 90 days or a year. So if you are serious about protecting your business, absolutely join SFATA. Get dialed in. And there are other industry associations out there that are also going to be working to provide their members with information. It's just, right now we have probably the closest working relationship with SFATA, and so I feel comfortable recommending people to join that. But honestly, just join any industry association and get going. It's that serious. And that is one of the roles of an industry association, is to provide its members with valuable guidance and information in how to be compliant with rules like this. That has been my standard answer for people that have called asking how these regs are going to affect their business. I don't even really get around. I might, but I don't even so much get around to saying, oh, and if you could put CASAA materials on your front counter, that'd be great. It's just, you just got to join an association. So I feel like I've kind of beat that to the ground, but
Yeah. Sometimes you do. I mean, I know it's something that, like, from the beginning years ago, Julie and I used to wish people would just join an association because they have greater pull. Their words mean something more than just one person alone. There's strength in numbers. And especially with businesses that provide tax income, etc. Their voice means more than just an individual voice in the dark, basically.
yeah. And, also it's important to note that, we are exploring litigation strategies. And so as a member of an association, your dues are going to go towards, are likely going to go towards funding any kind of litigation that the association might be a part of. And so, that's very, very important. And of course, I say all of this because this, and we come back to how this is a consumer issue. If there are no retail shops open, then I have a harder time shopping for these products. It just is that simple. So, yeah. So I know that everybody is very curious about the nitty gritty of, I think everybody's sort of chomping at the bit to get kind of a digest of these regulations. Probably the most important thing that I'm still kind of working on in terms of how it affects consumers is the compliance deadlines. I don't have them all committed to memory, but I'm going through it, and I would like to really make a document or a graphic that clearly explains this. So that's one of my goals for this week, is to put out that piece of information. But it is slow going because it really demands researching the code, and there's a lot of it. So we're doing that. And there are lots of questions about other specifics. What does this mean for DIY? Will I still be able to get this or that? Again, all of these answers are coming, and I think justifiably members of the people in leadership positions in the various advocacy groups, you can expect us to be very reserved and thoughtful about our answers. There is that we're in that area where we're potentially crossing over into legal advice. So we really do want to be on point with answers that we give. So bear with us. From a consumer perspective, we've got 90 days before we start seeing any significant changes. And in that time, there are going to be opportunities to take action. Tomorrow is a good example. We are working on an engagement right now to put out tomorrow. And I will tell you that this is not something that we expect to solve the problem overnight, but this is kind of one of those things that by all means we should take advantage of some of the resources that FDA has made available mainly it's made available to industry, but we're getting lots of questions, and I think the appropriate agency to answer questions about the FDA deeming regulations would in fact be the FDA. So the FDA has actually provided phone numbers for this. And this is likely to be part of something that we put out tomorrow. And we're also going to be recommending that people make phone calls. We're not writing emails tomorrow. Tomorrow we're making phone calls.
Yes.
So we're going to be putting something out tomorrow so that throughout the day, people are going to be calling their representatives and sharing their story, and we have some questions that people should be asking of their elected officials in regards to these deeming regulations. So, and it's very important, and this is, we've sort of stressed kind of the varying degrees of engagement here. You have, at one end of the spectrum, you have kind of the signing the random petition that is, doesn't really have a whole lot of impact. And then, many steps down from that, you have a form letter or a form email, which is probably the most popular thing that we put out. And then a couple steps down from that, you have the customized email, which is something that also we provide and we encourage people to do. You are telling your story, you're putting your personal touch to it.
Right.
And then you have phone calls, which is your voice speaking to someone on that elected official's staff, and you're having an actual conversation with them. Whatever your talking points and story are, that's your job to put that there, so that has a much larger impact. And then
in a respectful, polite
in a respectful, polite manner. This is you're talking. Think of this as talking to the person that you most respect in the world, and take that tone, and be constructive and respectful when you talk to lawmakers. And then you have handwritten personal letters or postcards. Those get a very good response, and usually they are taken as heartfelt. Yes. And then you have personal meetings. We're not necessarily encouraging people at the moment to set up personal meetings with lawmakers specifically for this issue. I'm not going to discourage anybody from doing it. If you have a good relationship with your congressman, by all means, have a sit down with them. It's time for a lot of come to Jesus moments. Anyway, we've stated all that before. I just figured now we'd reiterate. We probably got some new people listening to this, seeking information. Tomorrow's a couple of things. It is, I guess, 5/10 has sort of turned into World Vaping Day. Understandably, the date lines up and makes sense. It's 5/10, but it is also this is the day that the FDA deeming regulations were officially released. For anybody who is not concerned about this or thinks that you're going to ride this out, man, I'm sure there are going to be loopholes that people discover. We have made it clear in our comments regarding the regulations that a black market is an inevitability. This is one of the things that a lot of people have been highly critical regarding these regulations, is that you're basically just creating a gigantic black market. The infrastructure is already in place.
Alex?
Yeah.
Do you think that they made this as difficult to understand as possible, and had so many people helping them orchestrate this 499 pages of garbage, so that they're intentionally leaving themselves loopholes with more things to be able to come at us for?
The way I understand FDA regulating in other industries is they sort of provide non-binding guidance. I think that sort of protects them against certain things, and it also it makes it difficult for people to follow. So yeah, there is some intention behind it, certainly, but they're regulators, they're bureaucrats. I mean, I don't know if they can order a sandwich without being complicated. So some of it is intentional in the way that you can't see the air quotes, but regulate, and as far as communicating this to stakeholders, it's legalese, which is rarely ever easy for people to understand. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I mean, that's what I figured the answer was, and that's what I've been telling people the answer was. But it's always good when they hear the answers from the smart people that know this stuff, not the old lady with the big mouth.
Well, yeah. Yeah, laws themselves are not really written for the common man. It does take, generally a certain amount. I like to say it takes a certain amount of patience, really, to read this stuff. And I don't have any legal training myself. I just am fascinated by the language and how, laws are made, how laws are given power and how they take power and how they are set up to clarify, how we're supposed to be behaving or whatever. It is really a fascinating study, and it's the way that language is used to set this stuff up is fascinating. And so it's for me, it's a lot of persistence, and you have to be patient with it. And I mean, I spent time this weekend. I spent probably an hour just reading and rereading one particular page of the regulations. I mean, you got to get up and walk around and find something else to do for 5 minutes, but you got to come back to it with a fresh set of eyes and really sit down and get determined to kind of understand every word. That's just something that I encourage people to do, and it really is just a matter of patience.
Yeah. You sound exhausted.
I'm perking up now. I had a nap, so I'm ready to get back in it.
Should I just send you a case of Red Bull to the house, or?
I don't drink Red Bull anymore.
I have since these have come out. Yeah.
Yeah, I have other pills. I have brain pills that I take, and coffee. We got a really good coffee shop in Jersey City that I like to go to, and they make really, really good beans. So, anyway, I digress. So what else? I guess we've kind of addressed this already this afternoon, but I'll bring it up again just in case people missed the news. So we formed this coalition, and it should be clear to people that the part of the reason for forming this coalition is that there has been kind of an unseen unity between the various advocacy organizations. This has existed for, at the very least the past year, in some cases longer. It's just depending on the existence of any particular organization. But a lot of times what people see is this kind of stark division between the consumers and the industry, and then even amongst the industry groups, it seems like people are sort of competing for attention or space, or their particular agenda being pushed through. I'm not going to say that sometimes isn't the case, but at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same goal. So today, right away, immediately, we have announced this coalition, and it is intended to function as a coalition. Each of these organizations possesses different resources and can focus on different areas. Everybody brings a different set of expertise to the table. So again, we're pooling those resources, and more importantly, we really do want to show the community that we are working together constructively towards the goal of saving this industry. And I don't usually say that without saying protecting our access to this industry. But it's just another way to say it, honestly. So yeah, going forward, I'm excited to be working with these people. We've sort of already developed these relationships. And yeah, I'm somewhat confident at this point. I just, I have this. Somebody told me once, don't ever give the vapors any hope. So I'm conflicted in saying I'm confident that we're going to
I think
succeed in this, but
I don't know if succeed is the right word. I think we're going to. I'm confident we're going to be able to work together to try to further our goal. sounds. Yeah. I've been watching way too much C-SPAN.
yeah, I see where you're going with that, and I tend to agree, but that's just
not true, though. You've always
What?
watched too much C-SPAN, Jan. That's not a new thing.
I know.
But yeah, that's I don't really want to give people a bunch of platitudes about this. I really just want to give them we deserve a straight answer. We're certainly not getting it from our elected officials and regulators. So, we're going to be doing our best to knock this out of the park. Oh man, something else just popped into my head and I forgot it.
At least none of us are sitting on our hands. I mean, as individual groups.
You're breaking
You
up.
know, I am.
Yeah,
Hello? Okay. Can you hear me now?
sort of.
Yeah,
Sort of.
give her about 10 seconds and it'll be right back to normal again.
Yeah.
Okay,
We gotta wait. We gotta wait till the spaceship gets out of.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
real
back
X
to
Files.
Planet Earth, Jan.
Huh?
You're back to planet Earth.
Okay. I said at least we're working together. We're not individually sitting on our hands or just sitting on our own little pile of whatever and pretending it'll just go away, because it won't just go away. So
Yeah, and there has been this is the amount of support that that we're seeing is very generous. Well, it's nice. It's nice to finally see it. We are getting messages from international interests that want to support the United States vapors any way that they can. Want to support the coalition. So it's not just a small group of 5 organizations. It's everybody is really interested in contributing and putting their resources behind fixing this regulatory situation. And ultimately, I think one of the contentions all along, right now we're talking about changing the predicate date. We're talking about that because it's kind of the most realistic legislative solution, and there are 2 vehicles for that message, and one being HR 2058, the other being the Cole-Bishop Amendment. And the Cole-Bishop Amendment actually is in a position where it's slightly more viable, but it's in just as much danger of not really going anywhere, and that should be made clear. That neither one of these pieces of legislation is the silver bullet, but they are a start, and there is a reason to support both of them. But then again, changing the predicate date doesn't solve the problem of freezing innovation in its tracks, which is we don't have to wait for the FDA's ban hammer to come down on that. That happens 90 days from tomorrow. August 8th is the drop dead date. If you don't have a product on the market by then, you have to file a pre-market tobacco application. So we're going to see a lot of manufacturers rushing to bring new product lines to the market over the next 90 days.
right.
And somebody had actually raised the point that potentially, brings in consumer safety issues, people rushing, complicated electronics to the market, that could be putting people at risk. So something
Right.
for our members certainly to be aware of,
Mhm.
going forward over the next 90 days. I feel like I went down the point I was getting at was, ideally we end up in a situation where we're talking about a separate regulatory framework. I mean, that truly is the goal here. We do not want to be regulated like tobacco products. Or, you know, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm really even willing to concede at this point that, okay, fine, nicotine's derived from tobacco. That makes it a tobacco product. But, you know, even if that's the case, there should still be some sort of separate regulatory regime for these products. It is just not fair to treat them like the deadliest combustible product. And another thing.
You go,
and another
Alex.
thing. This is really just burning me up, and it's not because it's surprising or anything. It's just because it burns, and I absolutely despise this. We have been, you know, anybody who's been following this issue for any amount of time has watched, you know, just practically every week there's some new horrible story about how electronic cigarettes are going to kill you and eat your children in some horrific way.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, the FDA's response to what do these regulations do, I believe the White House response to what do these regulations do, the body parts organization's responses to what do these regulations do, have all been, these regulations protect the children. These regulations have now set a national minimum legal purchase age of 18. Okay. For those of you who have not been keeping score, that takes care of 2 states, I believe. Right. Pennsylvania, Jeannie, am I right? Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Yep.
And I know Pennsylvania, that there is a very active SFATA chapter in Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
Chris Hughes has been, I don't know, is dynamo the proper word? The guy is a powerhouse. I love Chris Hughes. I love the work that he's doing. And
there's nothing that can happen in the state of Pennsylvania that Chris Hughes and Bill Godshall don't tell me.
Nice. Yeah. And you've got Bill Godshall as well. So you have 2 very active and responsible people, leaders in the community, and you know, arguably, I don't know what the real number is, but I suspect a vast majority of retail establishments in Pennsylvania have already implemented a no sales to minors policy. Again, the heavy lifting there done by small businesses didn't really need FDA intervention. So that's the crowning achievement that FDA has put out there. And then they sort of follow that with, you know, we're going to require ingredient listing and you know, some other stuff, but like, yeah, totally monumental effort, guys. Way to go.
You know, but the funny part is, didn't 2 separate United States university studies say that when you took e-cigarette access away from minors, that they just went off and smoked?
Yeah, I actually included that in
and that's a win, correct? Taking one of the safer forms of experimentation and nicotine use away from someone under the age of 21 and getting them to go smoke a Marlboro is far better. I mean, that's the message I take away from it. Just not knowing anything, blanking everything out that I know, that is the message that you get as a takeaway from this, and that's disingenuous. It's a lie.
It's abstinence only education. It is no different than telling young people to wait until they're married to have sex. There is absolutely no difference there. And if you are not familiar with the public health issues that has created, look at communities where abstinence only education is the norm, and you will see higher rates of teenage pregnancy. Arguably, I would suspect that you also see higher rates of abortion, and higher rates of some other risky behaviors. That approach has not worked for drugs. We still have a drug crisis in this country. We have for decades, and we have approached the issue with abstinence-only education, prohibition. Millions of lives have been ruined by that, and it doesn't start to improve until we start daylighting, at the very least, these conversations. as someone who has gone through substance abuse recovery, I know that the stigma attached to drug addiction, alcoholism, that's why Alcoholics Anonymous was formed in the 20s. Did I get that right? Was it the 20s? These were people who had nowhere to go. They could not openly talk about their disease or their substance abuse problems with friends and family without being ostracized and stigmatized and treated like second or third class citizens. Yes. They needed a group of people, like-minded people that they could share their stories with and feel safe with. It was still anonymous, but it had to be that way to yes. protect themselves. Going a little further in history, Alcoholics Anonymous kind of had its own problem being anonymous. There's sort of a not really a backlash, but it does kind of hurt the effort a little bit in that you just can't talk about it. It's still stigmatized, and over time that has kept millions of people from seeking treatment, getting into self-help groups, seeking any kind of recovery, because a lot of them feel that their issues with substance abuse are a crime and that they're going to be stigmatized. And so, again, I know that I'm sort of going way off track here and dragging in other issues.
You're talking about harm reduction. This is a conversation we as a country have to have. We as vapors have to have. We as people who are recovering from whatever, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, we have to have this conversation. You can't let it be in the shadows anymore. I mean, maybe this isn't the venue for it, but have at it.
Yeah. No, and I think, and appealing to the, broad bipartisan support, I think it's very important to raise these issues. Democrats typically agree with things like supporting people in recovery, and having that conversation about harm reduction. It is baffling that they have not freely made that association between harm reduction for drugs and alcohol and other products, between that and vapor products. It's astonishing. It's disappointing, and we're that's part of it. That's part of what we're doing here, and is trying to help people understand that there really is no difference.
I know you're frustrated. It's okay. I mean,
I'm beyond frustrated at this point. I am openly angry. So at periods throughout the day, I have gone from, I sat in on the SFATA conference call on Friday, I believe, and I the whole time I felt like I was sitting there watching a friend die. It was very sad. I know I have seen big, strong men in the vaping community openly talk about how they just spent periods of the day crying. This is huge.
It is.
And so, I guess all of us are probably going to go through those 5 stages of grief. I think I'm getting into that anger and resentment stage, or if that, I don't know them by heart, but I think anger is one of them.
It is. Anger is the motivating one.
The quicker we get past denial, the better. Let's put it that way.
I don't know anybody who's actually in denial about this, though.
Oh, there's plenty.
There are some morons. Don't get me wrong. But I think most people who are aware, they're not in denial about anything.
I talked to somebody. I don't even have to name names because I'm sure that this is rampant throughout the industry. But I spoke to somebody today who works in a vapor shop, and they were very concerned about the regulations and what they could do to fight back and get involved. And they had spent some time, trying to convince their boss that, hey boss, you got to join an association. This is serious business. But that business owner is taking their advice from the manufacturers that they're buying product from.
Oh, for
And the
God's sake.
manufacturers that they're buying from, of course, are saying, no, 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 we're totally fine. We're compliant. We've already started our application. We're gonna meet the deadlines, and we're still gonna be in business.
I
Oh
have
my
a, I have a couple
God.
of ones that I would like to ask you about, Alex, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I got a copy of an email that a wholesaler sent out to the companies that purchase from them, and is recommending that that the companies that purchase from them buy the minimum quantity required, which, by the way, is 20 or 30 bottles each, of each nicotine level that they bottle, and each flavor that they bottle, in each size that they offer within the next 90 days to be able to continue to have them on their shelves. There's that, which I thought was quite clever, because if you were honestly really concerned about the companies that buy your products from you at wholesale, I think I would have less than a 20 or 30 bottle minimum for them. But there's that. So that's kind of scary. That's going on. And then I just, as you were talking, and I had my microphone muted because I tend to cuss while you guys are talking, I put up a post in the DIY group about the information that I have been obtaining from all you wonderful, smart friends of mine at CASAA, and from Michael Siegel's little webinar that he did today, about the shipments. And somebody in the DIY group is under the impression that none of this is going to affect DIY.
I saw some. Somebody had posted up. I guess Dr. Siegel opining about what the FDA could do to the DIY market, specifically individual supplies. I personally don't want to go too far into it. I think it's safe to assume that nicotine is going to be harder to get. But as far as I understand it, the base ingredients, propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, and the flavorings, they all have other uses. In fact, that's how DIY started. These companies were not necessarily marketing these base products specifically for electronic cigarettes. And there's really no, people make their own cosmetics at home. People make their own toothpaste. Some people use vegetable glycerin as a food additive. People use these food grade flavorings to make baked goods and so on, making candy at home. This is, all of these products have different applications besides, and they had these applications long before electronic cigarettes came along. So for those products, FDA does not have the authority to regulate those products as tobacco products if they are being sold for things like making your own candy at home or making your own toothpaste. It's
flavor manufacturer, you're probably going to skate off of this fine. But if you're ordering all of your stuff, and here's the thing, what I would be doing at this point is consolidating my orders. I'm going to find one place to get all of my stuff so that I am only having to pay that shipping once. But if this is the typical DIY shop that is selling nicotine, they're going to ship all their stuff the same way. So the shipping ban will affect it in that way. If it is nicotine, or comes from a company that is primarily a DIY vendor that sells nicotine as well as everything else, that shipping cost is going to carry through. It will directly affect that.
Yeah, and arguably that's, again, I don't want to offer legal opinion here, but I think that it is fair to speculate that much like if you were to market these products as cessation products, you would be approached by the FDA and told to stop, or you need to go through the medicines approval process in order to market your product that way. This really comes down to how are the products marketed. So if you're if you're a DIY company and everything on your menu is intended to be used in a finished tobacco product, then guess what? Everything on your menu is a part of a tobacco product, and you just will have to change your marketing strategy. It's I think it's that simple. But as far as people being able to continue accessing at least the base ingredients and the flavorings, again, these were all available prior to electronic cigarettes, and this is how the industry started. So we just kind of have to go back to the dark ages. That goes hand in hand with manufacturing and purchasing on the black market. The real sticky wicket is going to be getting a hold of nicotine, and of course that raises some legal challenge type questions that we'll be exploring going forward. And I don't want to talk too much about that, just for practical reasons. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how the DIY thing actually shakes out. So that's that.
You need to take a nap.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Julie, we're really sorry this is running long, but you know this was important tonight. She'll forgive us.
Oh, that's yeah, I think the notes for tonight will be real simple. A discussion on FDA deeming, so it could probably go up pretty quickly, because that's kind of what this whole thing has been.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like I might have gone over. I think your first comment or question, Jeannie, about ordering the minimum number of products. This touches on something, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to speak too expertly on it, because it's difficult for me to put myself in the shoes of a retailer. But one of the provisions one of the 90-day compliance things that I believe retailers and manufacturers and wholesalers are going to have to get ready for is listing basically everything that's on your shelves. It's inventory, but this inventory, I believe, will need to be submitted to the FDA, and I think that's it. And everybody who, if I personally am interpreting things, and you find yourself with questions, that's good. Consult the regulations. If you are in this industry and you don't like the answer that you're getting from CASAA, consult the regulations, join an industry association, and consult with them. So that's my standard disclaimer going forward. There is a paperwork burden associated with what people have to get accomplished in 90 days. And so I suspect that information will be coming out shortly. This people who are part of an industry association are going to get first crack at that guidance. That's how this works. And we, CASAA, we're not in a position to circumvent that process. It's not because we're cruel. It's just because our focus is on how this impacts consumers. And if anything, that should be encouraging people to get involved and become a part of sort of official group of people that are going to be spending time and resources to get this changed. I'm going to start repeating myself here, so I probably should let that go. my brain is not firing on all 6 cylinders. So before I get myself into trouble.
I think it's been a long few days.
Yeah.
Reading this stuff kind of turns your brain to mush. That's been my experience with it.
You know, I just remembered one more thing.
Okay.
And this has nothing to do with the deeming regulations, so I'm completely changing the subject here. And I don't want this to get lost, because it was a significant event. You know, one of the things that really kind of sucked about this was that when the regulations came out, both Julie and I were traveling. We had pre-scheduled travel that was, you know, this was scheduled months in advance, and you know, this wasn't something that just popped up and we're like, oh yeah, sure, like there's a possibility the deeming regs will come up, but yeah, we'll hit the road. No, these were commitments that we had months in advance of completely separate events. But I was up in Albany, New York, with the New York SFATA chapter for their lobby day, and so I got to pal around with a bunch of really great people from New York State and visit with their members of the New York legislature and have some conversations with staff members and actual lawmakers. Found a couple sympathetic ears. A lot of people that really just wanted more information, really desperately needed more information. Got what feels like some reassuring news about New York, in that you know, there's a couple bills out there that might move, but generally not a very high threat level. So, you know, again, you know, we have this federal deeming regulation which could wipe out the industry, but still in the interim, you know, excuse me, there's 2 years before some of these provisions kick in, and states are still free to set stricter regulations than what the federal government has determined is appropriate. That's been a provision of the Tobacco Control Act all along. So yes, we will be devoting a substantial amount of resources to fighting the federal regulation, but people should still be very conscious of their state and local laws. Tobacco 21 is still creeping across the country. I went to Providence, Rhode Island before I went to Albany. It was one big car ride, and had the opportunity to testify in front of the House Finance Committee. Funny story about that. The chairman of the House Finance Committee had resigned that morning. He is under investigation by a joint task force between the FBI and state police. So the chairman of the committee was not there, and one of the positive outcome was that the new chairman decided to hold all of the bills over for future study or further study, which was one of the things I was going to ask the committee for. So that was good, and it doesn't sound like that bill has a whole lot of prospect of moving forward. But again, yeah, that's Tobacco 21 law. And, you know, it's kind of funny, you know, we're talking about, you know, the deeming regulations setting the minimum at 18, and this is a triumph for public health, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, you know, states and municipalities are saying, well, 18 is not good enough. So, for reasons that are obvious to us, the FDA should absolutely not be celebrating this achievement, but nobody else should really be slapping them on the back like this is some great achievement, because, you know, there are zealots out there who absolutely are advocating for stricter regulations. I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but it's sort of, I don't know. It's this tsunami of mediocrity that's just swallowing everybody up. It just really bothers me, and you know, the general public is so hypnotized by, you know, I don't know. It's like this is one big car accident. The rest of the country is just sort of slowly driving by to see if there's any dead bodies. It's pretty horrible.
I don't, but I don't think people put it in the context we do.
No.
This 14 million.
I mean, when
Yeah,
you,
I saw that. I saw that post, Jeannie, and that thanks for putting that out there. That was that's, I think, more visualizations like the $14 million to get these products sitting on my desk. That's $14 million. That visualization needs to really get out there.
yeah, it does.
So
But no, I know how you feel.
yeah. Anyway, I was attempting to end on a good note and really
Okay.
just publicly wanted to put it out there. I had a really good time, walking side by side with people in Albany. And if you live in New York State and you haven't had the opportunity to visit the Capitol, I strongly recommend it. You paid for it, so there's that. But they seem to have done a really good job. It's a beautiful complex. I strongly encourage anybody traveling through upstate or living in Albany, definitely pay your capital a visit. It was kind of breathtaking, honestly. I don't know if I'm supposed to get all gushy about public buildings, but sometimes I do.
Well, yeah, but you like art and things, so architecture is just what was it? Architecture is frozen music. There was a composer who said that.
That's very nice. I'm gonna. You know what? Let's just end it there. I
Okay.
like that.
Okay. All right, go nap or something. Thank you. Alex.
Cue whip cracking sound. It's time to get back to work.
Thank you, Alex, for everything.
Oh, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Very.
Have a great night.
Alex,
Yes.
Jan, thank you guys.
Well, don't thank me for anything.
No, I do. It cannot be easy. Jan, I can imagine the emails that you're fielding right now. I honestly can. And I'm sure a lot of people are screaming and yelling at you guys, saying, "What are you doing? Why aren't you doing anything for us?" I, on the other hand, know a little bit about what you guys do every day. And thank you. It is appreciated.
Thank you, Janie. It's nice to hear. All right, Alex. I'll see you online.
Okay. Good night. Thanks.
Good night. Thank you.